Welcome back to another episode of the Landlord's Workshop. I'm your host, Ray, and today we're going to dive into one of the most important aspects of being a successful landlord, managing tenant relationship. Whether you have got long-term tenant or you're just starting out with a rental, maintaining a healthy relationship with your tenant is key to keeping your property running smoothly and ensuring you are running a profitable business. If you are new to the show, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We dive into everything from property management tips to avoiding common mistakes, and today's episode is no exception. Let's talk about tenant relationship. One of the most common questions I get is, how do you manage tenants and keep things smoothly without crossing the line between friendly and professional? And honestly, that's a great question. So tip number one, set clear expectation from the start. The first thing you should do is make sure that your tenant know what to expect. This starts before they even move in. Clear communication is critical. Your lease agreement should cover everything from the due dates to maintenance responsibility and late fees. But beyond that, take time to go over the lease with your tenants so they fully understand it. A little upfront education can go a long way in avoiding future misunderstanding. I used to prepare garbage and recycling for my tenants, for my units, but that got overwhelming for me. So next time a tenant came with a new lease, I made sure on the lease it was the responsibility of the tenant to do the recycling and garbage organizing before the pickup. Tip number two, communication is key. One of the biggest mistakes I made early on was not being proactive with communication. It's easy to think no news is good news, but that's not always the case. Tenants want to know that you are available and that they can reach you when there is an issue. So clear channels of communication, whether it's through email, text, or an online platform, let tenant know how to get in touch with you and when to expect a response. And don't just wait for them to contact you. Check in with them occasionally to make sure everything is going well. I have found that a quick check in every couple of months can help foster a positive relationship and prevent problems from escalating. It's much easier to address small issues before they become bigger ones. Tip number three, handle maintenance responsibly. One of the fastest ways to sour a tenant relationship is by neglecting property maintenance. As a landlord, your job is to ensure that your property is safe and livable. And while you may be on top of regular maintenance, tenant may still encounter issues that need immediate attention. Make sure you have a reliable system in place for handling maintenance requests. If you don't respond quickly, your tenant may feel ignored or even frustrated. This can lead to them not renewing their lease, or worse, posting a negative review about your property or refusing to leave, making you go to the court and then they finally decide to leave. One thing I have implemented to streamline this process is using a property management app that allows tenants to submit maintenance requests directly. It keeps everything in one place, and I can quickly assign tasks to appropriate service provider. Tip number four, be fair and consistent with rent collection. Another important aspect of landlord relationship is rent collection. It's essential that you are fair and consistent. This doesn't mean being rigid or unsympathetic if a tenant is going through a hard time, but it does mean setting clear expectation about when and how rent is due. I recommend setting up an automatic rent collection system to avoid the hassle of manually chasing payments every month. Not only does it make things easier for you, but it's more convenient for your tenant. Also, if a tenant misses a payment, be sure to communicate promptly. Understand the reason behind the missed payment. And if they are facing temporary financial difficulties, try to work something out. A little flexibility can help you avoid conflict, even keep tenants in your property longer. Tip number five, handling difficult situations with tact. Let's face it, being a landlord isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There will be times when you face difficulty situations like late rent payment, property damage, or even a tenant who breaks the lease. The key here is to remain calm, professional, and solution-oriented. I have had a few challenging situations, and now I learned quickly that staying calm and communicating clearly helps to diffuse tension. For example, if a tenant is late on the rent, try to understand why and work together on a solution. You may need to set up a payment plan or work out an extension. But the key is to approach with respect and professionalism. Remember, your goal is not only to protect your property, but also to maintain a positive working relationship with your tenants. Tip number 6, keep your business and professional life separate. Finally, it's important to maintain a clear boundary between your personal and professional life. It's easy to get friendly with tenants, but you have to remember that this is a business. Avoid becoming over personal or too lenient over term of lease. That means keeping conversation professional and staying consistent with how you enforce rules. If you are too flexible with things like late fees or pet policies, it can set an unhealthy precedent for future interactions. And that's it for today's episode. Managing tenant relationship can be challenging, but if you follow these tips, setting clear expectation, maintaining communication, and being fair and professional, you will be on the path of becoming a successful landlord. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review. I would love to hear from you. Whether you have your own tenant management tips or if you have questions you would like me to cover in the future episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Landlord's Workshop. Until next time, take care of your property and your tenants.